Now that we know a little bit more about 3D models in general, let's take a look at how we can start to get some geometry into our scenes in Maya. So here we have an empty scene, and we'd like to add some 3D models to the scene. There are a number of different ways that we can do this. One of the easiest and quickest ways would be to add 3D primitives. Now you can think of primitives as very simple shapes, and we can find those up at the top menu under Create. And you'll see they're broken down by the type of geometry that it is. NURBS, polygons, and subdiv are the ones that we're going to concentrate on. And you can see that the lists of primitives are very similar. You can see that spheres, cubes, cylinders, those are going to be common to all three. Okay. You can see polygons, there are a few more types of primitives that we're able to create versus subdivision surfaces here, where it's fairly limited to the number of primitives that we can create. So let's take a look at what these primitives look like. So under polygon primitives, let's just choose to create, let's say, a torus. So click on torus and nothing happens, but we do get a message here, drag on the grid. So I'm going to do just that, click and drag, and you can see that I'm pulling out a sort of radius of this torus. Okay, it's going to give me another message, drag to edit the section radius, which I'll do, and now I can change the section radius. So the reason that it's created this way is that we have this interactive creation selected. That's what we just saw, where we're clicking and dragging to change different attributes of the model that we create. Okay, those attributes can also be set initially in the option box. So going down to torus and changing these, we can change those attributes. We can also do that over here in the channel box. If we select this polytorus node here under inputs, you can see that we have values here. And if I just click and middle mouse drag, I can change interactively those values. Now, if we'd like to just drop in a torus without having to click and drag to set it, then we're going to want to turn off the interactive creation. And then when we add a torus will be created with whatever values we have in the options, although we can certainly go in and change those values after the fact. Okay, and so I typically will create models just on the origin like this without the interactive creation, but you're certainly able to do that. If we go to NURBS sphere, just click and drag to create a NURBS sphere, and you can see how that geometry looks a little bit different. And we have values over here that we can change as well. Okay, so take a look at those primitives and just play around and look at what those different primitives look like. You've got, under polygons, you've got a number of different more complex primitives, and then subdivision primitives are a little bit simpler again. Okay, now beyond primitives, if we go ahead and just select these and then delete those, beyond the primitive shapes, which are really useful for beginning our models in many cases, we also have other methods of creating geometry. For instance, under Mesh, if we go to Create Polygon tool, I can just click and drag, or click on the grid rather, hit Enter, and I've created a polygon here. Okay, NURBS also you're going to create more complex NURBS objects by using curves, and to create those curves, you can just go use the CV curve tool. Okay, so if I go ahead and the space bar, and I'm going to go to the front view, hitting space bar again, go to Create CV Curve Tool, and I can click in the viewport to start to create a curve. Hit Enter to complete it. Okay, let's now jump back into perspective view, and you can see that curve here. So this is going to be useful for creating NURBS geometry, and we'll look at how we can do that a little bit later. Now, beyond creating geometry within the application, we can also import geometry that we've maybe created in another application or in Maya, and we've just transported it somehow. So to import geometry, we'll go to File, and let's go to Import. And we'll talk about basically three types of files that we can import. The first file that we'll look at is the OBJ file. And so we can filter this down here at the bottom of our dialog, and you can see we have a chair underscore export.obj in our project files. Let's go ahead and select that, and we'll bring that object into our scene. Now you can see that we're not really sure what we're looking at, so to frame it, we'll go ahead and hit F on our keyboard. Now you can see that we have our chair. You can select the chair here. We can also go under Window, Outliner, and we can see the chair here. Okay, so we can import models just like that. If we'd like to rename it, simply double click in the outliner and we can rename this. Okay, and you can see from the icon that this is a polygon mesh. Let's go ahead and hide this by hitting Control H on our keyboard. And we'll look at a second file type that we can import. So we'll go to Import. This time we'll filter down to the FBX file. And we also have a chair underscore export.fbx, and this is going to be another format that's going to be fairly prevalent for you to get geometry back and forth. So we'll go ahead and import that FBX. And now you can see again, we have the same chair. If we want to rename this, double clicking and calling this FBX. Now you can see that all this geometry is basically together, even though they're separate pieces. So let me go ahead and hide this. And beyond exporting these two external file types, we can also, importing, we can also import just other Maya files. So we're working with a Maya file right now. If we have a model that exists in another Maya file, we can simply import that. So we'll go to File, Import, and this time we'll filter based on the MA file. So Maya Scenes or Maya ASCII. And we'll choose Chair. Okay, so this is basically just another Maya file that we have, and we'll import that. Now you can see visually we've got the same chair, but if we look in the outliner, you can see that things look a little bit different. We aren't seeing that polygon icon. We're seeing a little bit of a different icon and then a little plus sign. This is a group. Okay, so you're going to find that when you're working with models, arranging them into hierarchies is going to be very important, because if I have a chair that's made of multiple pieces, as you can see, this one is, as I can now select, but I don't want to be able to move those multiple pieces. Once I've got this chair built, I want to be able to move this as one piece, because rarely will I need the back to come off of the chair. I'll need to move the chair as a whole, but I may need to keep this as separate pieces. So when we model, arranging things into groups is going to be important. So looking at this, this is a group right now, and if I go ahead and open this up, you can see that it contains polygons, models underneath in sort of a little hierarchy. Okay, to pull this out of the group, we can select all of these and hit Shift P. Okay, now you can see the group is really nothing to the group. It's just a node here in our outliner. So if I want to delete that, nothing happens to the rest of my models. Okay, I can now select everything separately, but I don't really have any way of moving this as a whole apart from selecting everything at once. Okay, so I want to be able to organize this somehow. Okay. So if I want to do that, we can go ahead and select the geometry that we want to be part of a group, and we can hit Control G. That will group everything together into the group. You can see the familiar icon there. And now we can go ahead and rename this. So I've renamed the group, and if I open this up, you can see that the names of the geometry, all the pieces of geometry, stay the same. Now, if I'm out here working, and I say select the cushion, and I actually want to select the group, but I don't have the outliner open, I can actually hit the up arrow to go up a level to the top of the hierarchy. So I can select any point, and hitting the up arrow will get me to the same spot, because all of these children are at the same level as this group. Okay, so keep that in mind, and you'll see this when you're working with models. And as we go through our project, you'll see some of these groups. Just keep in mind, it's just a way, kind of a container for organizing things together. Okay, so we've got the chair imported. You can see the difference here with the geometry. So to unhide this, I'll just hit Shift H on both of these. Okay, and so two of these are basically one piece of geometry, and then we've got the group down here. Okay, so we looked at importing different kinds of files as geometry, and then also creating primitives here in our Maya scene, and then a couple of different methods for possibly creating some different types of geometry as well. And we'll get into more of that later, but just wanted to give you an idea of how we can start to get 3D models into our scenes, and how we can start to import those, create those, and so forth. So the next thing that we want to talk about is how to actually display our models in our viewport. We have a lot of options for different ways of displaying models here in Maya, and we'll talk about those in the next lesson.